Friday made the world laugh in 1995, but time was far less kind to the people behind the jokes. 30 years later, some became legends, some vanished without a trace, and others never lived long enough to enjoy their success. This is what really happened to the cast of Friday. Then and now. Ice Cube as Craig Jones. Born on June 15, 1969, in Los Angeles, California, Ice Cube was just 25 when Friday premiered in 1995, stepping into the role of Craig Jones, the calm, observant everyman whose single bad day turned into one of the most quotable comedies of the decade. By the early 1990s, Cube was already a cultural force. After igniting controversy with NWA and then detonating his solo career with AmeriKK's Most Wanted and Death Certificate, he shocked audiences again by crossing into film. Boys N the Hood, 1991, proved he could act with gravity, but Friday revealed something unexpected: timing, restraint, and warmth. Craig Jones wasn't a gangster or a firebrand. He was relatable, human, and funny without trying, cementing Cube as more than just a rapper turned actor. Success, however, brought new fractures. As Cube expanded into producing and headlining projects like The Players Club and Barbershop, he clashed repeatedly with studios over creative control and ownership. His public image hardened as political statements, industry disputes, and later controversies around his outspoken views complicated how Hollywood received him. The industry that once feared his anger now seemed unsure how to market his independence. Rather than retreat, Cube built his own infrastructure. He leveraged his brand into franchises, music, and business, refusing to wait for permission. By 2026, Ice Cube is 57, still acting, producing, and running ventures like the Big Three basketball league, a rare survivor who turned Craig Jones into a cultural touchstone without letting it be the end of his story. Chris Tucker as Smokey. Chris Tucker was born on August 31, 1971, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was only 23 when Friday premiered in 1995, exploding onto the screen as Smokey, a hyperactive, foul-mouthed hurricane of chaos who instantly became the most quoted character in the film. Smokey didn't just steal scenes, he hijacked the movie. Tucker's rapid-fire delivery and reckless energy turned him into a breakout star overnight, but the success came with a price. As studios rushed to bottle that same manic formula, Tucker found himself trapped by the very persona that made him famous. He walked away from Friday sequels, distancing himself from stoner humor and explicit comedy, a decision that confused fans but reflected a deeper shift already underway in his personal life. By the late 1990s, Tucker's career surged again with Money Talks, and especially Rush Hour, 1998, which made him one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. Yet behind the scenes, his worldview was changing fast. After a religious awakening, Tucker renounced profanity and distanced himself from the style of comedy that defined Smokey. That pivot fractured his relationship with audiences who expected the same wild energy, while Hollywood, unsure how to package a clean Chris Tucker, slowly pulled back. As the 2000s progressed, his output thinned. Long gaps between films, a costly divorce, reported financial strain despite massive earnings, and a tax dispute with the IRS all contributed to a sense of withdrawal rather than collapse. While Rush Hour 2 and Rush Hour 3 kept his name alive, the cultural connection had weakened. The man, once everywhere, now appeared only occasionally, no longer chasing dominance. As of 2026, Chris Tucker is 54. Financially secure and selective, he performs stand-up internationally and appears sporadically on screen, wealthy, disciplined, and at peace, yet forever haunted by Smokey, the role audiences loved and the identity he chose to leave behind. John Witherspoon as Willie Jones. Born on January 27, 1942 in Detroit, Michigan, John Witherspoon was already in his early 50s when Friday premiered in 1995, slipping effortlessly into the role of Willie Jones, Craig's sharp-tongued, no-nonsense father, who somehow became the film's emotional backbone. John Witherspoon came up through stand-up comedy in the 1960s and 1970s, sharing stages with legends like Richard Pryor. Yet mainstream success remained elusive. Friday finally gave him mass recognition, but it came with a quiet trap. His booming voice, exaggerated expressions, and unmistakable dad energy were so beloved that Hollywood stopped seeing anything else. Offers followed, but almost always as the same character: the loud black father, the comic authority figure, the familiar punchline. Rather than collapse under typecasting, Witherspoon leaned into longevity. He reprised variations of the role in Friday sequels, Boomerang, The Wayans Bros, and countless TV appearances, becoming a generational constant rather than a fleeting star. Behind the humor, however, was an actor who knew he would never be allowed to reinvent himself dramatically. His death came without warning. On October 29, 2019, John Witherspoon died suddenly from a heart attack at his home in Sherman Oaks, California. Nia Long as Debbie. Nia Long was born on October 30, 1970, in Brooklyn, New York. She was just 24 when Friday premiered in 1995, cast as Debbie, the effortlessly cool love interest whose quiet confidence made her one of the film's most unforgettable presences. By the mid to late 1990s, Long had become a defining face of Black Hollywood. Roles in Boys in the Hood, Friday, Love Jones, and The Best Man positioned her as the era's ultimate romantic ideal: beautiful without being exaggerated, strong without being hardened. Unlike many of her peers, she avoided tabloid chaos and built a reputation around steadiness, professionalism, and emotional authenticity. In 2022, Long's long-term relationship with Boston Celtics head coach Ime Udoka collapsed publicly after his workplace affair became headline news. The betrayal played out under an unforgiving media spotlight, turning Long from admired leading woman into an unwilling participant in a scandal she did not create. The fallout affected not only her personal life but also her public image, once defined by control, now marked by vulnerability. Rather than retreat, Long recalibrated. She continued working, choosing projects carefully, and speaking openly about boundaries, self-worth, and healing. As of 2026, Nia Long is 55 years old. Still active in film and television, she continues to work selectively, maintaining her independence and credibility while shaping a career defined on her own terms rather than public fantasy. Regina King as Dana Jones. Born on January 15, 1971 in Los Angeles, California, Regina King was 24 when Friday premiered in 1995, appearing as Dana Jones, Craig's sharp, outspoken younger sister in a role that was small, fast, and easy to overlook at the time. Long before Friday, King had already grown up on television, starting as a teenager on 227, learning discipline in an industry that rarely protects young black actresses. After Friday, her career advanced steadily but quietly, built on range rather than hype. Films like Jerry Maguire and Ray, followed by voice work in The Boondocks, revealed an actress capable of authority, humor, and emotional precision. In the 2010s, King emerged as a formidable director, winning an Academy Award for If Beale Street Could Talk and directing acclaimed episodes of Scandal and Watchmen. At the height of her creative power, her life was shattered. In January 2022, her only son, Ian Alexander Jr., died by suicide at the age of 26. The loss was immediate, devastating, and irreversible, a private grief that no award, legacy, or professional success could soften. She continued working, not as an escape, but as survival, carrying her pain without exploiting it, refusing to let tragedy define her publicly while it reshaped her completely. Now, Regina King is 55. She is an Oscar-winning actress and director whose brilliance endures even as she lives with a grief that will never fade. Tommy Lister Jr. as Debo. Tommy Lister, born on June 24, 1958, in Compton, California. He was 36 when Friday premiered in 1995, towering over the screen as Debo, the silent, menacing neighborhood bully who instantly became every kid's worst fear. Before Friday, Lister was a former professional wrestler, a powerlifter, and a character actor whose imposing frame made him unforgettable the moment he appeared. Debo, however, sealed his image forever. Scripts kept coming, yet nearly all of them demanded the same thing: fewer words, more menace, another version of the same brute. Films like The Fifth Element and The Dark Knight offered brief visibility, but never escape from the shadow Debo cast over his career. As years passed, work became inconsistent, finances tightened, and his health declined. In 2020, Lister announced he had contracted COVID-19 and was recovering, a claim that later became part of public confusion surrounding his final days. On December 10, 2020, he was found dead in his apartment in Marina del Rey, California. He was 62. Lister died largely alone. The cause of death was later attributed to complications from hypertension and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, but conflicting reports and timing fueled ongoing debate and speculation. Faizon Love as Big Worm. Born June 14, 1968, in Santiago de Cuba, Faizon Love was raised in Newark, New Jersey. He was 27 when Friday premiered in 1995, unleashing Big Worm, the flashy, fast-talking dealer whose pink car, greasy grin, and payday threats turned a supporting role into a street comedy icon. Big Worm became instantly quotable, instantly recognizable, and instantly limiting. Hollywood wanted that same energy again and again, rarely asking for anything deeper. Love stayed visible through comedies like Elf and The Replacements, but the offers circled the same lane: loud, reckless, larger than life. As years passed, momentum slowed into repetition, and repetition into stagnation. Off-screen, the cracks widened. Public controversies followed him into the 2000s, including arrests tied to disorderly conduct and assault allegations, as well as a widely reported DUI case. Court appearances and headlines began to replace casting announcements, reinforcing the industry's hesitation. Without a breakout reinvention, Love found himself fighting an image he helped create, a persona audiences loved, but studios no longer knew how to evolve. By 2026, Faizon Love is 58. He appears sporadically in film and stand-up, largely outside the spotlight, remembered far more for Big Worm than for the decades that followed. Anthony Johnson as Izal. Anthony Johnson was born February 1, 1966, in Compton, California. He was 29 when Friday premiered in 1995, appearing as Ezel, the twitchy, wide-eyed neighborhood crackhead whose exaggerated physical comedy became one of the film's most memorable running jokes. Izal's presence was brief but unforgettable, and Friday opened doors to similar roles in films like House Party, Menace to Society, and later, How High. He was repeatedly cast as addicts, losers, and punchlines, roles that blurred uncomfortably close to real life. As the years passed and offers thinned, Johnson's health declined alongside his prospects, with alcohol abuse becoming a persistent shadow. In July 2009, reports spread that Johnson had suffered a heart attack at LaGuardia Airport while traveling to a comedy show, sparking fears that his lifestyle had finally caught up with him. Nearly a decade later, Johnson clarified that the incident had been a severe panic attack, not a cardiac event, but the scare exposed how fragile his condition had become. Weight fluctuations, hospital visits, and long absences from the screen reinforced the sense of a man struggling to stay upright as opportunities quietly disappeared. Anthony Johnson died on September 6, 2021, at the age of 55 in a hospital in Los Angeles County after being found unresponsive. Bernie Mac as Pastor Clever. Born October 5, 1957 in Chicago, Illinois, Bernie Mac was 37 when Friday premiered in 1995, appearing briefly as Pastor Clever, a blink-and-you-miss-it cameo that gave no hint of the force he would soon become. Before fame arrived, Bernie Mac's life was shaped by survival. Raised on Chicago's South Side, he endured poverty, loss, and relentless pressure long before he ever touched a stage. Stand-up comedy became both refuge and weapon, but success came slowly and painfully. As his career in comedy clubs grew, so did his addictions. Cocaine and alcohol shadowed his early years, threatening to derail him just as his voice began to sharpen. Health problems followed, including chronic sarcoidosis, an inflammatory lung disease that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The breakthrough came late but violent. The original kings of comedy and The Bernie Mac Show finally pushed him into the mainstream, revealing a comedian whose humor was raw, fearless, and deeply personal. Film roles followed in rapid succession: Ocean's 11, Bad Santa, Guess Who, each proving he could dominate both comedy and drama. Yet even as his career peaked, his body was failing. Recurrent hospitalizations, breathing complications, and the long-term effects of sarcoidosis quietly eroded his strength while the spotlight burned brighter than ever. Bernie Mac died on August 9, 2008, at the age of 50, from complications of pneumonia linked to sarcoidosis. DJ Pooh as Red. DJ Pooh, born June 29, 1966, in Los Angeles, California. He was 29 when Friday premiered in 1995, appearing briefly as Red, a small on-screen role that hid how central he truly was to the film's existence. Unlike his co-stars, Pooh came up in the late 1980s as a producer and writer deeply embedded in West Coast hip-hop, working closely with Ice Cube during the volatile post-NWA era. When Friday took shape, Pooh co-wrote the script, helping translate neighborhood rhythm, street humor, and lived-in dialogue into something authentic. Yet as the film became a cult classic, public credit drifted elsewhere. Faces were remembered, catchphrases went viral. While Friday launched careers and immortalized characters, Pooh continued working quietly behind the scenes, contributing to sequels and later writing films like Next Friday and Friday After Next. His influence was structural, not spectacular, shaping tone, voice, and cultural accuracy without demanding the spotlight. In an industry that rewards loud success, his restraint often read as absence. As several cast members struggled with typecasting, scandal, illness, or early death, Pooh remained steady, employed, and creatively relevant. He expanded into producing, directing, and mentoring, becoming a bridge between hip-hop culture and Hollywood storytelling, trusted precisely because he never chased fame. Now, in 2026, DJ Pooh is 60. He stands as the quiet survivor of Friday, not the most quoted, not the most photographed, but the one who outlasted the chaos. 30 years after Friday first made us laugh, the smiles behind it tell a far heavier story. Some rose higher than anyone imagined, some faded quietly, and others were gone long before their time. Time changed their faces, but not the impact they left behind. Which journey stayed with you the longest? Share your thoughts below and follow along as we continue uncovering the untold stories behind Hollywood's most unforgettable films.